So I recently rewatched Avatar: The Last Airbender, and since it's so good, I'm very much in the mood to talk about it. There's many different options for what specific topics I could talk about, but since there's so many, I feel it's probably too hard to pick just one. Also, the show is over 20 years old. I feel like there's probably been plenty of like already existing interesting analysis on every aspect of the show. I really don't need to explain how amazing it is. There's a lot of other discussions that'll do that. So I think instead, for this video, I want to discuss not any specific elements of Avatar, but instead just the show as a whole from a specific angle. And I know what angle I'm going to cover. Today, I'm going to share my ideas for a hypothetical Avatar: The Last Airbender Lego video game. I think this game would probably be hypothetical because my understanding is that TT Games, which is the studio that makes the LEGO games, it works closely with WB Games now, and the current deal is that they're only going to do games based on franchises that Warner Brothers has the rights to. For example, the newest game is LEGO Batman Legacy: The Dark Knight. That's Batman Warner Brothers. There's a couple reasons why a LEGO Avatar game could potentially exist at some point, though, like getting very hypothetical. First, I know that Paramount, which I think maybe owns the Avatar franchise, since that's streaming services where the new movie is going to go, is I guess Paramount's buying Warner Brothers, maybe something like that. I don't want that to happen. I think there's multiple negative consequences that come from that, but whatever. The second reason is that back in the early 2000s, LEGO actually made a couple of Avatar: The Last Airbender sets. I don't think they were all that good, but it was a thing that existed. So yeah, very hypothetical, but not fully hypothetical. Anyway, if this game were to be real, what ideas do I have for it? So, well, what topics do I actually need to cover? What would I say are the key elements of LEGO video games? I have thought of a few. So, characters, there's a couple exceptions to this rule now, but generally LEGO games have very large character rosters, and most of the characters should feel slightly distinct to play as, but having a lot of some features in common. And the Avatar franchise definitely kind of has a wide selection of characters that you could do. You could have a pretty full roster. And then abilities, kind of going around. So different characters have different abilities that are used to solve all the different puzzles. And for Avatar, this is pretty much included with the premise because you have the different bending styles and other skills, and then a few more abilities you could throw in as well. But mainly just the bending styles would build that out. And I think the more interesting would be just maybe figuring out what the controls might look like for doing all the different abilities. A lot of LEGO games have a hub world, and I think the world of Avatar would make a very interesting hub world. It wouldn't be a full recreation because it would be way too big, but most of the locations that appear throughout the course of the show would appear in the hub world of this game, and that would add it to be a manageable number of subsections of the map. It would be similar to both probably LEGO Lord of the Rings in the sense that it's a bigger world where just kind of the highlights of the path that the protagonists take, that's what actually gets detailed in the hub. And then also LEGO Star Wars The Skywalker Saga in the sense that there's a lot of distinct regions to subdivide it into. And things in the hub world, there'd be things in the hub world that are kind of part of the main story, and then probably also some extra content to do after the story wraps up. And then levels, last point, is I think 5 levels for each book is what I had thought about is going to work well, especially since you do have that elaborate hub world to put a lot of the story events into. And the levels would really be reserved for certain specific parts of the story that are more significant, or just they would work better as levels than fitting them into the hub. Not sure how I would name the levels. You could try using quotes from the show as some of the names, or you could do puns or alliterations, or just use the episode titles for some. But I didn't think about I want this level to be called this because that's a cool pun or that's a fun name or anything like that. This is, I'm not going to get into that because I didn't go over that. So, but that's the basic elements of the game. And for more specifics, I think what I actually want to do is try and talk about the game in its story's chronological order. And yeah, this game would cover all 3 books or seasons of the original Avatar: The Last Airbender series, and so that's plenty of ground to cover. So what I'm going to do is summarize the story, and then while doing that, kind of talk about how certain things would translate into one of the key elements of a LEGO video game. So let's get started. So right when the player hits the new game button, the opening cutscene is probably just going to be the intro to the show, maybe the longer version that they probably did for the first couple episodes. And then you start off in a new area, which is the southern water tribe, and then specifically the outer waters of that. And you get 2 playable characters. I'll try to make a note if I think there would ever not be 2 playable characters at a certain part of the story. But yeah, you get Sokka, who has different weapons, mainly the boomerang, and then like a club or a sword or something like that. And one of the control buttons would be a designated button to switch between weapons. So that would be neat. And then Katara is the second player. And for now, just basic water bending. And so I think bending in this game, in its most basic state, will work kind of like the Force or Wingardium Leviosa in the other games. So like you can do it at specific spots, and it's going to be marked by like colored swirls around something, and they would be blue or yellow or green or red based on what element to bend. So the first objective is to catch a fish, and that's going to prompt dialogue, and then accidentally water bend the ice. Then you get a cutscene to meet Aang and Appa. Aang is unlocked, and he already has Master Airbending, so lots of ability, and specifically mobility. Like you could hold A to do a high jump, kind of like Hulk's, but probably a lot smaller. Hold A while you're in the air, and you can glide if you have your glider. Sometimes in the story he doesn't have the glider, but tap A is jump like usual. But what I would want to do is if you tap A while you're in the air, and I'm using the Xbox controls this for what I know, so like A, B, X, and Y. But yeah, tap A in the air and you do like a little dash, kind of like reverse flash in like a DC supervillains. And also what you can do for airbenders is if you're running, you can automatically do an air scooter after a few seconds of running. And also you could run up certain walls would be the thing that you could do. And also airbenders and some other characters just are generally acrobatics, so they could do certain parkour spots. Like Aang could do that, other maybe like Zuko or Azula or Suki or Ty Lee could do that, because they're all pretty acrobatic. Other characters not. They're all pretty acrobatic, but specific characters you definitely want to give that ability. And so for attack moves, so generally the bending combat would be like, if you tap X, you get like a small forward attack with whatever element. Tap B, I think regardless I would want to do like a blocking move, so like there's different ways that would work for different elements, or even non-bending. Hold X would be some small attack or like a small surround attack, and then hold B would be your big full wave attack, either forward or surround, depending on the element or something. So for airbending specifically, you could have a thin gust of air going forward, you could have a little shield out of air, you could do a big gust of air going forward, and then you could have a sustained surrounding air blast fully surrounding the player. And then so Appa, for the most part, would behave more like a vehicle than a character, but there would be certain moments, probably just in some of the levels, where you can take control of him. And then Appa can fly around the world, but can only land at certain spots, kind of like a flying vehicle. And one thing that I think would be cool is if Appa ever flies too high, or if he flies, or if you take a boat too far out into the ocean, the screen just kind of fades into becoming the map, and that turns into like a fast travel selection. So yeah. That's those 2 characters introduced. After the cutscene, get a tutorial of like how to do local and fast travel with Appa, and then go to a new area, which is the Southern Water Tribe, but not the Outer Waters, the Wolf Cove Village. So overall area, Southern Water Tribe, but 2 specific spots in there. And yeah, so next objective would be Aang and Katara and just explore the Fire Nation ship, set off the flare. Then you get a cutscene with Zuko arriving, Aang surrendering to the ship. Katara and Sokka now, other players take Appa to the ship, Aang becomes playable, small boss fight with Zuko, and then cutscene of the Avatar state, and then the trio flying away in Appa. So I thought about making the kind of the 2-part first episode, the first level, but I think I want to establish the Southern Water Tribe well as like an area in the hub world. And also many LEGO games do start off with a level. There's a few that start in the hub world, so I think this is fine. So yeah, anyway, after all that, new area unlocked, fast travel to the Southern Air Temple. The main objectives here would just be exploring the temple and then follow the lemur. Doing that triggers a cutscene of Aang finding Gyatso's body and then the Avatar state, and then he gets calmed down. After that, you unlock Momo, and he has the ability to glide, and then maybe, I don't know if I would want to include this ability, but he could maybe do like crawl spaces, but I don't know if any other characters would have that, so I don't know if I want to include that ability, but that's a potential one. So yeah, after that, you have Momo unlocked. You unlock a new area, which is Kyoshi Island, so fast travel there, and while you're traveling, you want to have a cutscene of Zuko and Admiral Zhao, just because you want to introduce Zhao, and since Zuko wouldn't be playable, you have to do that in cutscenes for him. So on Kyoshi Island, stuff you like, you ride the elephant koi, and then you get captured by the Kyoshi warriors. You can have a lesson Because I really like how the Harry Potter games have lessons where you unlock more abilities. I think this could have that too. So you have a lesson with Sokka and Suki doing just combat training. Then you have an encounter with Zuko and drive him away, extinguish the fires. That's that episode. New area, fast travel to Omashu. The first objective is this: you create the little disguise to enter the city, and this is going to trigger the start of the first level. And so, like I said, 5 levels for each book or season. So the first level is adapting the King of Omashu episode. And so the sections are going to be riding the stone slopes, and then Bumi's challenges, including the boss fight against him. And the second part is maybe just Aang, because Katara and Sokka are like trapped in the crystals, but you could have Momo as the player too. So that's the first level. After the level, you unlock a new area, which would be Haru's village. And then, so we're in the Earth Kingdom now, and the areas are going to kind of be connected by all the land. But, you know, each proper designated area is going to have its own, like, fast travel point, so they'd be subdivided like that anyway. So objectives in this area: you unlock Haru, basic earthbending, he gets captured, do the fake earthbending to get into the prison, then you escape the prison. It's the episode Imprisoned. So next area would be, again, probably pretty close to Haru's village because it's all in the Earth Kingdom, but, you know, just fast travel to, it would be Heibai Forest. So boss fight against Heibai the Spirit Bear is an objective. Then you unlock the ability to use the Spirit World, which I would do as certain characters have the ability to, like, stand on a pad on the ground and then hit a button, and then they're in the Spirit World. And that would kind of be like Wraith mode from Lord of the Rings or Lego the Hobbit. Basically just, you know, you're in the same spot but different spot, and you can do new abilities and interact with new things in that same area. So here it would be, you know, you want to get the message from Roku's Dragon Spirit. And that's the objective. And you can maybe do stuff like Aang has to find all the taken people, or just, you know, find something to get out of the Spirit World. But yeah, adapt that episode of the Spirit World. Anyway, you know, you want to get something to trigger the next level, which is the episode Avatar Roku. And I think this is good for a level because it's set outside the main area. You know, they go off to the Fire Nation. And yeah, so you could have the main group as playable. Also, that one friendly fire sage maybe could be playable for a bit. But yeah, so, you know, flying over, bypassing Zhao's fleet, exploring the temple, getting to the sanctuary could be a major puzzle set piece. Then you get a cutscene with Roku, and then you could briefly actually play as Roku as the last part of the level and, like, destroy the temple and stuff. So after that level, you can be in a new hub area, which would be the episode The Waterbending Scroll, maybe call the area the Pirate Port. And then you get a lesson, or maybe 2 lessons, with Aang learning waterbending from Katara and then from the scroll. And then, you know, steal the scroll from the pirate ship. And so more on waterbending. So now you get some combat moves. So tap X, just water splashes, or like the ice darts that go forward. B would be blocked with like a little wave of water. The water whip is a move that they do, so that could be like a surrounding water whip. And then a big wave would be the big one. Kind of almost like a laser or a beam, just like shooting water all the way forward. Yeah, so next in the episode, you know, you encounter Zuko and the pirates again. So yeah, and then a cutscene to end that. And then new area, the Freedom Fighter Fort for the episode Jet. You know, you get rescued by the fire troops, and then you could do a thing where, like, at the fort, you have to go around and gather all the other freedom fighters, and that will trigger the next cutscene. Objective to, like, go fill the reservoir, and then you could find out Jet's real plot in the cutscene, and then you boss fight against Jet. And this would mostly be Aang and Katara because Sokka's off doing his own stuff. So yeah, next area would be fast travel to the Great Divide. Follow the Earthbender guide, take quests, and hear info from the tribespeople. Maybe fight some canyon crawlers. Definitely objectives you could have in this part. So cutscene after that. Then new area would be like the fishing village, and then you could have objectives like fishing with Sokka and the fishermen, and then Katara and Aang rescue them. But a lot of this episode would be adapted as cutscenes because, like, it's the episode of the storm. It's Zuko and Aang's origin stories. And then after the cutscene, Katara and Sokka are sick, so Aang and Momo would be the second player. They go find the frozen frogs, and then Aang gets kidnapped, and then that's the level trigger for next level is going to adapt the Blue Spirit. I think it's kind of tailor-made for a level, just Aang and the Blue Spirit escaping the Fire Nation fort. So you get up a section of the interior and the section of the exterior. Pretty simple, easy level. After the level, Katara and Saki heal them, and then new area, fast travel to Aunt Lou's village for the episode The Fortune Tower. Cutscenes to show off the fortunes, and then, objectives of gameplay is like climb the volcano and make the cloud signs and evacuate the village and save the day, bend away the lava. And then, next area, I don't know what to call it. I think it's just like the Earth Kingdom shores. But the episode Bato of the Water Tribe, unlock Bato. You would do a gameplay bit of ice dodging, and that would unlock just boats as another form of doing fast travel. And then you could have a boss fight against June and Nyla, the bounty hunters. And then, next area, I think it's just like a Fire Nation colony town. Get caught there, escape that, meet Zhang Zhang with a cutscene, and then, get a lesson from Zhang Zhang at firebending, and then have a boss fight against Zhao. And then so next area is you fast travel to the Northern Air Temple, and you want to get triggered to the next level at some point. I would do this as a level, but you could also have some stuff in the hub world. But you want to unlock Teo and the Mechanist, you want to do some gliding, you want to do some mechanic work. Doing mechanic work maybe could be its own ability, because like Sokka could unlock that. That would be pretty cool. I think it's really cool that Sokka gets to learn new skills even though he's a non-bender. You just explore the air temple and then fight the Fire Nation forces. Some of it could be hub world, some of it could be the level. After the level, you unlock the ability to fast travel to the Northern Water Tribe, and again, you would have multiple sections. You could have the outer waters, you could have the frozen tundra, but mostly you just have the city. I think it's called Dagnakella, and you're most of the time in the city. But you get a waterbending lesson for Aang from Master Paku, maybe do a lesson of healing for Katara, but basically at this point you're getting all the waterbending abilities unlocked. So other stuff, you could have being able to go underwater by making an air bubble, and maybe airbenders can also do this. You could surf on the water by holding an A button, and that would let you traverse to different things. And then you can temperature change certain water, freeze it or melt it, or turn it into vapor. And you would do that, I think, how it's hold B and then do the rotate the joystick. It's how they do the time manipulation with Doctor Strange in the Marvel game. That'd be another thing. So a lot of abilities that waterbenders can do. And then Katara gets a boss fight against Paku. That's the episode The Waterbending Master. Then we get to the Siege of the North. Sokka and Yue, they could fly on Appa, 2 players, spot the Fire Nation Navy. Then Aang could solo fight the Navy for a bit. I don't know. He would be solo. I don't know. Sokka and Yue, while Aang's doing that, could assemble the troops, just gather different people. And then Yue brings everyone to the Spirit Oasis. Aang enters the spirit world. That could trigger the level start. And so maybe you get a boss fight against Zuko, cutscene of Zuko taking Aang's body away. Aang could explore the spirit world and face Ko, and then that would be solo. So while that's happening, the rest would find him in the tundra. And then back to the Spirit Oasis. I probably would want to do a little bit of a boss fight against Zhao. In the actual episode, it's not really much of a fight, but it's a game, so you can embellish it. I'm not sure if I want Zuko and Iroh to become playable for the first time at this point, or I have another point later that might work better. So I don't know if they'd be playable here. And then other objectives after the boss fight, Yue becomes the Moon Spirit, and then Aang merges with the Ocean Spirit, and then the final part of that level is Aang just as the Ocean Spirit kind of destroying the entire Fire Nation Navy. So that'd be fun. That'd be a good way to end the level with a bang. And then, get some cutscenes, and that's the end of book 1. Okay, so book 2, you start on a boat in the Northern Water Tribe Outer Waters. Use the boat to fast travel to a new area in the Earth Kingdom, which would be General Fong's fort. You get a cutscene to meet Fong and then set up objectives. Try different ways of just getting Aang into the Avatar state. Aang will eventually learn how to actually activate the Avatar state at will. It'll be an ability, or just a feature, really. But most of the main story, it's just only there for certain points. You could end this part with a boss fight against Fong. And then, so cutscene, Roku explains, don't die in the Avatar state. That's really bad. Then you get a cutscene with Zuko and Iroh. If they're not playable yet, do it as a cutscene, just to introduce Azula. And yeah, so if they've been playable already, this could be gameplay. But if I'm saving their playable first point for later, do it as a cutscene. Yeah, so Aang and company fast travel to Omashu, but more on the northern side, so a different point from what they were at before. And walk up to the traveling singers, and a cutscene, enter the cave, and this is the first level of book 2. You could have it be a few different options as what you want the first level to be, but I'm going to have it be the Cave of Two Lovers, that episode. And then I think I'm actually also going to include some stuff from Return to Omashu. I did it less so for book 1, but most of the levels now, I think I want to do it as any point in the story where there's kind of 2 episodes that pair well together. Because a level you can kind of have more going on. So the first part of the level, very similar to, I want to say actually the pyramid level in LEGO Marvel Superheroes 2, just a big underground maze you got to get through, and there's kind of 2 groups that you can switch back and forth between. Should be really cool. But yeah, cutscene to eventually get out of the cave, see Omashu, and then we maybe are going to do Return to Omashu as part of the level. Could just be in the hub world though. But you know, the highlights of that episode: faking the Pentapox disease, bringing back the toddler, and then the first boss fight against Azula. And see, the fact that it ends in a boss fight is kind of good for ending a level, you know, instead of just being in the hub. So yeah, and both of the episodes that take place in Omashu are levels, but the city is still going to exist as an explorable area in the hub, just less detail when it's in the levels. So after the level, new area unlocked, go to the Foggy Swamp, play as each of the trio in turn following the vision, and then, you know, fight the swamp monster. That's the episode. Then you unlock a new area, the Chin Conqueror Village. You know, see the Avatar Day Festival, Aang announce himself. Katara and Sokka actually fast travel to Kyoshi Island to gather a couple clues, then bring them back, and then you have a cutscene with Kyoshi, and then defeat the Fire Nation soldiers. Yeah. And then important cutscene, Zuko has to go leave Iroh, because that's how it happened in the show. But back on the main group, new area unlocked, fast travel to, I think the town is called Gaoling, but it's, you know, go to the Earthbending School, hear about the Earth Rumble, watch the Earth Rumble. You could maybe like play as the Boulder first, but then you play as Aang versus Toph. You know, at the Earthbending School, hear about the Beifong family, cutscene at that, and then you unlock Toph. Most earthbending skills. So for the combat, small stones can throw forward with the tap X, tap B block with just like a wall of earth, hold X, kind of a little earth wave, not even with actual material, but just kind of a earthquake wave surrounding, and then B would just be a big wave of white blocks of earth coming up from the ground forward, something like that. I don't know. And the mobility, certain spots earthbenders can kind of move through earth like Sandman and LEGO Marvel. Also maybe certain spots to like surf on the earth to gain some elevation, and certain spots kind of climb on earth walls. You could play around with it, lots of options. But yeah, anyway, continuing the episode, escape getting captured by Jin Fu, and then cutscene to show Toph is leaving with the gang, and then Zinfu and Master Yu are hunting them down. Maybe fast travel to a new area, which would be the campsite, and then set up, and then you see Azula's forces, but eventually you do want to get a trigger for the next level, which I would do as a combination of the episodes Zuko alone and then the chase. So Zuko alone, just really need the brief highlights from the episode. Definitely the final part of that episode. And so yeah, Zuko would be alone for this, as the name implies, so I don't know how you'd have to do that. For adapting the episode The Chase, I don't know about the first part. Again, maybe that would be in the hub world. But eventually at one location the objective is to realize that Appa is shedding, and then get a cutscene for Toph leaving and conversing with Iroh. Aang can make a fake trail of fur, kind of with a section of just gliding, that can be cool. And then comes across the abandoned town, and then Zuko becomes the second player. They chase Azula through the town until the rest of the characters join in, and then they all corner her, and that leads into the cutscene. And yeah, so obviously Zuko and Iroh are now playable. They're unlocked here. And so for firebending, Iroh would have most of the firebending abilities. Zuko would have some at this point. You know, at tap X, small forward, a little blast of flame. Tap B, do a little blocking move with some fire. Hold X, do like surrounding flames a little bit. And then hold B, kind of build up to a big forward jet of fire, like a laser beam. So yeah. And then another thing, that'd be cool. Some firebenders, like Azula does this. If you tap A while you're in midair, it could do like a dash move. like dart off to the side with a kick of fire. Anyway, so after the level in the new area, it's a canyon type place. Maybe two groups. One could switch between, like they're like in Lego Lord of the Rings. That's how it would be whenever there's like a solo or multiple groups, you know. So one of them is Aang and company. One of them would be Zuko and Iroh. Aang gets an earthbending lesson and then saves Sokka. Iroh explains the elements in a cutscene and then does the lesson of redirecting lightning. After this, probably just Aang and company, they fast travel to the C1 desert oasis. They find Professor Zay, and then they hear about the library, go to the library on Appa, explore the library, find the Sky Predictor room, escape Wan Shi Tong, and then get back to the surface, you know, the episode in the library. And then there's a cutscene of Appa being captured. Now it's the episode The Desert. Iroh and Zuko are in the oasis. This is where we would first see the ability of using the White Lotus tile, which would be its own ability. Just White Lotus members can show the tile and unlock various things. You could have a couple similar things, like Earth Kingdom access could have a thing, and Fire Nation access could have a thing for certain relevant characters. That's an ability that's kind of common in Lego games. But anyway, you know, back to the desert. Aang tracks down the Sandbenders, going across the desert, exploring the areas, and then Avatar State, and then cutscene. And basically end of the episode, The Desert, now episode The Serpent's Pass. They're all in the ferry station. They're trying to get tickets. Cutscene that they can't. And now Suki's a player now, and they're going to traverse the Serpent's Pass. And then this is the next level. So the Serpent's Pass part of the level is going to be, you know, traverse the pass, dodge the Fire Nation ship attacks, and then the end of this part of the level will be just fighting the Serpent. Then a cutscene. Next part of the level is actually going to be Zuko and Jet, and then a little mission to like steal food on the boat. And then third part of the level, you know, Aang and his group finish crossing the pass. They see Ba Sing Se and they see the drill. And then the third part of the level would be, you know, disabling the drill and then fighting Azula, Mai, and Ty Lee. And then the last cutscene will be Jet suspecting Iroh and Zuko of being firebenders. So that's the level. After the level ends, Aang and company, they're on Ba Sing Se's outer wall. The objectives, you know, take trams to the inner part, meet Judy, attempt to meet the Earth King, and then cutscene of Long Feng, you know, meeting that. Then you get to play as Zuko and Iroh again, serve some tea, I guess, and then you get a really cool boss fight, Zuko versus Jet, and then cutscene to show Jet getting captured and brainwashed. You know, adapting the episode, City of Walls and Secrets. So yeah. And then we get the episode Tales of Ba Sing Se. And this would all be kind of individual, so maybe you have two going at the same time. But just small objectives of each character, you know, of their little stories, you know, so. And then the last one, though, would be the Tale of Momo. And just chasing around the other animals and then finding Appa's footprint. And that's actually going to be the trigger for the next level, which is going to adapt Appa's Lost Days and then Lake Laogai. So the first part, I would do 3 kind of vignettes. You get a playable, full-scale Appa, and then another character. So it'd be at the Fire Nation Circus, just the one boy who helps Appa escape. That'll be the first vignette. Then you get Suki, heals Appa, then starts to fight Azula, but we don't see all that. And then Guru Pathik prepares a message and then sends Appa off. That could be its other vignette. And then you could have a character unlock of Appa as a baby, because he'd be kind of closer in size to a minifigure and then better fit for a playable character. And also, you know, he could airbend and glide, and so that would just pad out the number of airbenders in the overall character roster. So that might be kind of cool. That's just one more specific idea I had. Then cutscene to show that Appa gets kidnapped by Long Feng. Then we play solo as the Blue Spirit finding Appa, and then cutscene of Iroh saying, you know, actually free the bison. While this is happening, Aang and Co is the second group. They unbrainwash Jet, and then they cutscene to go to Lake Laogai, find Long Feng, pursue him, and then boss fight against him, and then eventually they meet Appa again. And so that's the level. I don't know. I think those 2 episodes actually do work pretty well together. But yeah, you definitely want to come up with a cool name for that to get the sense that it's both of these episodes. I don't know. Bison and brainwashing. I don't know. So yeah, I don't know if Lake Cloud Guy is going to need to be in the hub world, but after the level you can either spawn there or just back in the city. But yeah, go objectives, go to the Earth King, then kind of take them around the city, go to different locations and convince them that there's a war. And then, they see the drill, and then cutscene that shows, the gang gets different mail, and so they split up. Aang and Sokka go to, maybe you'd have an area of Chameleon Bay, but then you'd really have the area of the Eastern Air Temple. And also Toph gets captured. So you'd want to have a solo section of Toph inventing earthbending. And then also Aang kind of as a solo, maybe with Momo as the second player. They have a lesson from Guru Pathik about the Avatar state. And so the way I would do this is kind of complicated, but you'd have the button to switch between different weapons. You'd also have that, if you're playing as an avatar, to switch between what element you want to use. Or if you're like Zuko, switch between swords and firebending. But anyway, so avatars would default to using their home element for combat, but they can use other elements in specific spots. So like if there's a puzzle where you need to waterbend, but you're Aang, you can still waterbend. But to change what element you kind of naturally use, you could hit the button. And so now Aang, let's say he wants to waterbend for a bit, as by default, just hit the button and he'll waterbend instead of naturally airbending. But to enter the avatar state, which would last for like a little bit, it would be temporary. What I would do is you use the button, so the button to switch elements would be like the plus sign pad that's on the Xbox. So press that kind of in a special sequence, and that would just bring you to the avatar state, and that will let you kind of alternate between elements without having to specifically press buttons, and it would last like a bit. So that'd be cool. And then so the lesson is kind of learning how to do that and also show off the different chakras and stuff like that. So eventually, cutscene, Katara's in danger, Aang leaves, gets Sokka from Chameleon Bay, either in a cutscene or gameplay, back at the house at Ba Sing Se, and then this is the start of the last level, which would be the Crossroads of Destiny. Iroh arrives, and they gotta find Zuko and Katara. And so I don't know, this is probably harder to adapt as a level since there's actually less action, but it could be interesting to end the book with a level that's kind of shorter since it has, the abrupt, surprising end to the book. But Sokka and Toph face Azula's trio. Iroh and Aang break out Zuko and Katara. Then fight between Azula, Zuko, and the Dai Li for a bit, and then Aang tries to do the Avatar state. That doesn't work, obviously. And the last bit of the level is Iroh and Katara help each other escape. And Iroh's captured, and Zuko goes with Azula, and the gang escapes on Appa, and that is the end of Book 2. So Book 3 starts off with the episode The Awakening, probably mostly going to be adapted through cutscenes, but for gameplay there could be a little bit of stuff to do on the boat, and then Aang gliding off to Roku's Island could be a bit. After cutscenes of this, new area unlocked is going to be fast travel to the Fire Nation town that has a school in it. So next episode is the headband, so steal the Fire Nation clothes, and then cutscene at school, and then gather people for the dance party, go back to the cave, do the party, and then escape. So that's that episode. New area, Painted Lady's Village, introduce the village with a cutscene, and then actual gameplay objectives, destroy the Fire Nation factory, and then impersonate the Painted Lady and drive off the Fire Nation forces. I'm going kind of fast, but I think it's pretty self-explanatory how this is going to work. Cutscenes and gameplay to adapt to each episode, the highlights of them. But new area, just in the Fire Nation, is Piandao's mansion. Sokka gets a combat lesson from Piandao, doing the different activities and then making the space sword, and then honestly like a boss fight against Piandao. And I don't know how it's going to work because it's Sokka as like solo. Next up is the beach. Again, not sure entirely how to adapt this, but Aang and company are kind of chased by Combustion Man for a bit, so that could be playable. The thing is, so Zuko is at the beach with Mai and Ty Lee and Azula, and I don't think I want these three to be playable at this point. I just think it's interesting to not have them be playable. The next episode is actually the Avatar and the Fire Lord, which I would do as the first level of Book 3. So how about we do the same thing? We include the beach as part of the level. So player 1 is Zuko, and playable gameplay parts of the level are doing the volleyball and then trashing the house. And then Azula and Mai and Ty Lee, they're there in the level, but they're not actually playable. And then while this is happening with one player solo, player 2 would be Aang and his friends on the run from Combustion Man. and that would be just another thing to do if you have 2 players. Eventually you get a cutscene to show that Zuko and Aang are finding the letter, and then Roku's spirit, and that's going to prompt the next part of the level, which is adapting the Avatar of the Fire Lord. Kind of how I do it as little vignettes of Roku, and then his element kind of teachers, learning the elements, little vignettes for each element. And then Roku and Sozin's fight, I don't know how you do it, but you could do it like they're each other's boss fight, kind of like Darth Vader from Lego Star Wars, that level. Then, the last part of the level is Roku and Sozin together, kind of fighting off the volcano. So yeah, after that level, you spawn as Aang and company, and then you fast travel to, I think it's just called Fire Fountain City, for the episode The Runaway. And so the objectives here are do a few scams as Toph and Aang and Sokka, do the scam as Toph and Katara, escape the wooden cell, and then subdue Combustion Ban in a little bit of a boss fight, but not necessarily really. And then cutscenes as well. New area, Hama's Inn. Most of this, just a lesson on advanced waterbending for Katara from Hama. So I'll ask more details about how waterbending works. Is the waterbending characters have a meter of kind of how much water they have. If they're near water, it's going to stay full. If they're not, they have the pouch. But to replenish it, just probably same controls, hold B. And now what this would unlock is instead of having to be near like water, you could replenish it just from like plants or something. And then the big thing is bloodbending, and I would do that kind of working the same way as like mind control. So tap B near certain characters and then they'll do what you want, and you can kind of control them. And then you have boss fight against Hama, and you have to do bloodbending to defeat the boss. So yeah, cutscene and fast travel, whatever, to new area, which I think is called the Black Cliffs. It's where they rendezvous for the invasion. And then so the episode Nightmares and Daydreams, you could do a lot of just like training. You could do something with the hallucinations of Appa and Momo. Again, you can unlock Appa as a biped for another airbender on the roster. That could be fun. And then another objective is the other characters create a bed out of sheep wool, and then Aang can finally go to sleep. So that's that episode. And then you get a cutscene. So the episode, The Invasion, the other forces arrive, and then you could do a thing where it's like, okay, we have to walk around the area and gather all the people and, hit buttons and get them to go to this other space. Very common gameplay mechanic of doing that. And then a cutscene of the briefing, and then you actually get the level of Day of Black Sun. And this works perfectly. It's a 2-parter, so perfect size for a level. And then, so first part, just the water phase of the attack. Second part, the land phase of the attack. It's pretty self-explanatory. It's a big battle. It works really well for a level. And then cutscene to show no one's at the palace. Third part of the level, going through the tunnels of the volcano to find the bunker. And then fourth part of the level is, chasing after Azula, fighting the Dai Li. And then you could have a little bit where Zuko's playable and he redirects lightning against Ozai. And then have a cutscene to end the level. A lot of them get captured, but the main ones escape. So yeah. And then you fast travel. After the level, you start off like just being on Appa in the air. And then you fast travel on him to a new area, which is unlocked, and it's the Western Air Temple. And you could make the Western Air Temple kind of more detailed of an area, just because you'd be there for a while in the story. But yeah, the episode, the Western Air Temple, probably mostly adapted through cutscene. But you could do like Zuko is solo, and then Aang and company is the other group, player 2, and basically you just have to get them to meet up. And yeah, then more cutscene, and then you can have the boss fight against Combustion Man, and a cutscene of him getting defeated. So now Zuko's really, honestly, more the player 1 by default, just because he's more common in the story now. Because everyone has the Zuko field trip. But yeah, so go to a certain part of the temple as Zuko and Aang and try and teach him firebending, but Zuko can't do firebending now. So go find Toph. The player 1 and 2 are Aang and Zuko, and then you go find Toph, who's not playable at this part of the story. Just talk to her, hear about bending from the original source. New area unlocked, the Sun Warriors land, so fast travel to that. And traverse through the ruins, do the dragon dance, get trapped. Cutscene to meet the Sun Warriors, carry the fire up the big staircase. Cutscene of meeting the dragons, and then more talk with the Sun Warriors, and then fast travel back to Western Air Temple. Aang and Zuko unlock firebending. Yippee! So yeah. Okay, so after those objectives, now our main two playable characters are Zuko and Sokka, and you can... anytime it's just talking, it doesn't necessarily have to be a cutscene. It can just be like they talk in the hub world. But they talk about how they're worried about the prisoners from the invasion, and a new area unlocked is the Boiling Rock, and then they fast travel to it, but in the war balloon this time, which is another vehicle that they can have besides Appa. So, and they fast travel to the Boiling Rock, but they don't actually land there in the hub because that'll trigger the level. Because again, two-parter works really well for a level. The area is going to exist in the hub world and can be explorable post-story, but just it'll be a level. So just selecting it for fast travel triggers the level. And yeah, I picked this of the Zuko field trips to be the level, just since it's the two-parter. But also I do feel it's kind of tailor-made for a level. And also Sokka and Zuko are kind of my two favorites, so yeah. But yeah. So yeah, cutscene of them flying on the war balloon. We get the quote of "That's rough, buddy." And then the first playable bit is them kind of, the air war balloon kind of slowly drifting down. They crash land in the prison. That could be really cool. Just cutscene, I'll immediately transition to gameplay like that. Yeah, so next objective in the level is go find guard disguises and then ask different people about Water Tribe prisoners, and then they find Suki, and then they make the plan about the cooler, and you kind of unlock Chit Sang as another playable character, and then you get a cutscene of the cooler plan with Chit Sang not working, and Hakoda arrives. Next objective is to start the riot. Zuko by himself will kind of subdue Mai, and then he'll rejoin the group. Suki will do the thing where she kidnaps the warden, and because she's acrobatic, and then the rest of the group get on the gondola. On the gondola, we get a boss fight against Azula, and at the end of the fight, Mai and then Ty Lee, they become playable for the first time. I think that's why I would want to have them be playable, not until here, because this is like when they turn good. And yeah, so they become playable, and then they stop Azula, and that can maybe be the end of the level, but I'll come back to that in a second. So Mai's ability would be the little darts, and they can maybe hit special targets, trigger things. And then Ty Lee has the chi blocking. I don't know if that really translates to an ability, but she would be acrobatic, though. So at most characters, I want to give at least one ability to. So yeah, the cutscene of them getting back to the Western Air Temple, and then right away, basically, it's in the next episode, pretty much right away. There's a boss fight again against Azula, but at the Western Air Temple. So this could be in the hub, or it could be the end of the Boiling Rock level. So, yeah. And then cutscene of the group splitting up to escape, and then the main group will fast travel, or just, it happens off screen during the cutscene, to a new area. I'm not sure what canonically the location the group is at, kind of between episodes here. Before Ember Island, I don't know what location that area officially is, but maybe for simplicity it could just be like near Ember Island. So yeah, so now we're on to the Southern Raiders. Yeah. Okay, so Zuko is still player 1 character, player 2 probably still Sokka, but they go talk to Katara about her distrusting him, and then Sokka tells about Mother's death. And so now Zuko and Katara are the two players, and they go talk to Aang about revenge, and they use Appa to travel to the Southern Water Tribe outer waters and find a boat, find the ship. On the ship, progress the troops to reach the bridge, and then Katara bloodbends the captain, and then he says about Yanra, and then use Appa to fast travel to a new area that could just be Yanra's home. It doesn't have to be that big of an area, but just somewhere in the Fire Nation. And then objectives there, kind of stalk Yanra, and then, cutscene of his perspective of the Southern Raid, and then Katara attacks him but doesn't actually hurt him, and, confrontation, and then, yeah, so that's the episode of the Southern Raiders. They fast travel back to the beach, and then Zuko has to go talk to Aang about what to do when he faces Ozai. So, yeah. And then we get some cutscene to show just gap between the episodes. And the group's now living at the Fire Nation royal family's house on Ember Island, and Ember Island's a new area now. And so, okay, so it's 5 levels per book. We've only had 3 so far in book 3, and we're almost at the end. I'm really not sure if any of the episodes earlier in the season work amazingly for levels, other than the ones that I kind of already put as levels. We could just have book 3 only have 4 levels, the ones we have, and then obviously Sozum's Comet. Or we could have 2 levels to cover Sozum's Comet, because like the Avengers Lego games, they did that. Each movie's kind of final battle was 2 levels. But I think how I want to adapt the series finale, I think I know how I want to do that, and I think I only want to do it as 1 level, kind of preceded by some stuff in the hub. So how do we get our 5th level in book 3? I actually have an idea. So the Ember Island players play is going to be the game's penultimate level. So the lead up and trigger for this level is going to be, while they're on Ember Island with the group, play as Sokka and Suki. They explore the island, find the theater, and they get a poster. Bring the poster back to the group. That's going to trigger the start of the Ember Island players level. So watch a cutscene of the group going to watch the play, getting in their seats, and then for the level, the playable characters are actually the actors on stage. So the first part of the level would be, little vignettes adapting stuff from Season 1, Book 1. Then a cutscene, the group reacting to it. Second part of the level, vignettes from Book 2. Then another cutscene, and then the last part of the level is the vignettes from Book 3 that, are actually in the episode. So like the boss fights against Azula and Ozai. And then a cutscene to end the level, end the play, and the group reacting. And so the actor characters would have kind of the same bending as the proper characters. Maybe they could only bend in this level, or maybe they could just always bend, but it wouldn't really be bending, but it would just look like it's special effects whenever they use the bending abilities. It would be kind of cool. I think it'd just be cool to adapt that way. And also I needed a 5th level to put in book 3. But yeah, that could be cool. So yeah, after the level, the group's going to spawn back at the Fire Royal Family's house on Ember Island. Play as Aang, maybe Momo is the second player, and they just get chased by Zuko. And eventually get a cutscene where Zuko says, we have to defeat the Fire Lord before the comet. Can't do it after, because he's going to murder the Earth Kingdom. The next objective then is the group kind of working together and doing more training. And then a cutscene of Aang going out to the mysterious island, and now Aang's not playable. So we now play as Zuko and the rest of the group. They fast travel to find June, the bounty hunter. I don't know what area they would fast travel to, but just some part of the Earth Kingdom. Get a cutscene of June saying that Aang just can't get tracked, and then also a cutscene of Ozai is now the Phoenix King, and then June is now going to try to track down Iroh. So fast travel to the outer wall of Ba Sing Se, and there's tents, and you meet up with Boomy and other members of the White Lotus, and then they go into Iroh's tent. And this is the start of the last level, the trigger. So you get a cutscene of Iroh explaining the plan, and which characters are going to do what where. And so for playable gameplay sections, the first one would be Aang and Momo on a little small area of the mysterious island, just doing a few different puzzles to kind of get the spirits of the past avatars to show up, and then each of them talk while being present in the playable area. So that's the first section. Then you get a cutscene of Aang talking to the lion turtle, and then we have, I think, 4 different sections for the rest of the level. And you could do them like one after the other in sequence, or you could do a lot of switching back and forth because they all kind of happen at the same time. So the playable areas are, first is Iroh and the rest of the White Lotus. They're liberating Ba Sing Se. That's one playable area. Second, Sokka, Toph, and Suki are disabling the airship. That's a second playable area. Third, Zuko and Katara are fighting Azula in a boss fight. That's an area. And then last, Aang is fighting Ozai in a boss fight. And it's maybe just Aang by himself, so maybe it's just one player. Or Momo's there as well, because, you need 2 players. But yeah, so those are the 4 areas of the last level. And, they could either be one after the other, kind of in that order, because that's the order of how exciting they are. Or they could just, switch back between them. But yeah, just kind of boss fights and final things, and that's the last level. It should be a really cool level, because it's a really good finale. But yeah, so after all that, Aang, Ba Sing Se is freed, and the airships are taken down, and Azula is defeated, and Aang defeats Ozai, and then we had a cutscene to show the last moments of the episode, and it's the happy ending. And that's the end of the story. And then, you probably spawn in Ba Sing Se, and then from there you do the other stuff on the hub reel, and it's free play, and yeah. So yeah, that's my ideas for LEGO Avatar: The Last Airbender. I think I covered everything I wanted to. But yeah, I went through the whole story and talked about how it would work kind of in gameplay and cutscene, and yeah, so probably a long video, but I think it'll be a really cool LEGO game. So Thanks for watching my YouTube video.